All right, here we go. Okay, we're recording. All right, so this is Brittany, and I'm on here with my friend Sharma. Sharma is an enema advocate. She's a full-time mother. She's currently in Mexico, which I think is so amazing. And I don't know if I think we're both home birth advocates too, natural birth advocates for sure. You want to add something? Anything?
That's everything.
And a mucusless diet
Practitioner.
Yeah. And so I'm going to learn a lot about that soon too. And I'm Brittany, home birth advocate, birth worker in New Orleans, and mother. Basically, yes, full-time mom. We're both full-time moms to two boys. We both just had our second babies they're maybe like a month apart. Yeah. So Sharma and I connected on Instagram, which I always think is so cool. But then we haven't met in person yet, but it feels like we have. An interesting thing, we found out that both of our partners are Nigerian, and so we both have two Nigerian boys. And so so I'm still in my postpartum or after birth phase. So I'm still in my room, like cooped up in the house. I think I have another week or so to go to complete my 40 days. But this is just like a creative, like something that I thought about while I've been in my after birth time, that I wanted to share. I've been wanting to share for a long time, but then me and Sharma connected a lot during this period. And I was like, we have to talk about this. Like, more women need to know about this. Like, she had her baby at home. We actually birthed our babies the same ways, like just us and our partners. And so anyway, we've been connecting a lot, and I just thought okay, let's go talk about some things because people need to hear, more women need to hear. I would like them to. And yeah, our boys are around, so they'll probably be coming in the camera. So he wants to be with you today. He's like, I'm not going downstairs. He has a mix of just him and his dad. Hi, Bill. So today we're kind of talking about, I guess we will really share why we chose to birth unassisted and the reasons behind that. And our experience, I had an experience with working with a midwife and an OB with my first birth. Although I did birth at home, I had the experience of working with them the first time.
Sorry.
So I don't know if you want to go. You want me to go?
Yes.
Okay, so with my first birth, I decided to have, I knew I was going to birth at home with the midwife, but I had also was like, I'm going to do parallel care and I'm going to go see OBs. I'm going to go see an OB. And so I did that. And if you go on my Instagram, I share the story of my birth. So I'm not going to go too into detail because I've talked about it already. But one thing that that was really different was going to the OBs or to the OB, is they're kind of just wrapped. So everything is kind of numbers and these tests and all these things to tell you about your own body. And so you have they leave you with no space for you to kind of just tap in and see what you feel in your own, using your intuition about how you feel. So a lot of things I knew I didn't want to do. So I didn't do cervical checks and all those things, but they drew my blood and would do my blood pressure and things like that. I feel for certain women, it may be okay for you to go to OB because you're kind of just so strong in what you want, and you're already pretty educated about pregnancy. And that's kind of how I was, even though it was my first baby. But I kind of already knew I don't need to do the glucose test. I don't need you to cervical check me. I don't like, so I told them no about a lot of those things. But I feel like it definitely, I remember being scared because they told me I needed to have, I did a ultrasound. Then they were like, well, you need to have a second one because we think that they couldn't see something clearly. And I always use that example because I'm like, it really scared me. Like for 2 days, I was just like, oh my gosh, like what, I just know my energy was totally different. Like I was like getting attitudes about simple things. And I realized it was all because I was just like, had this fear that they kind of planted in me, telling me that like, oh, there's something going on. And then when I went back, of course, like everything was fine. It was normal. But just that amount of energy or like that amount of power, I feel like I let them have over me by having like, by even going to them and like going along with the ultrasounds and all that type of stuff. And so the midwife that I had was, she's a licensed and well, she's a trained midwife, but she doesn't have a license. So she's more like an underground midwife. So she's who I had the first time. And I'm grateful for just, you know, believing in myself and like trusting the process of natural birth. I wasn't looking to her for like, you're going to make anything like better or easier for me. It was just like, this is my first time birthing. I kind of need to know like what actually happens after the baby comes out and placenta and all that stuff. So she was there to kind of facilitate like that kind of thing. And so I saw how like, just how simple it was. And then from birth work, when I started going to births, I was like seeing women who we would talk as like their doula, we would talk about your plan. And I've been at unassisted births, and then I have clients who choose to have midwives or choose to have an OB, and they're like, I still want to do it, but I want to go to the hospital and birth, or I want to have midwives come to my house. And so they would tell me their plans, and then as they're working, they're like meeting with me and their midwives. And their plans would eventually change, or like the midwife would tell them that, oh, you need to go get an ultrasound. Then they're like sending them like 2 weeks later for another ultrasound and another ultrasound. I'm like, these are midwives. Like, why are you going to this many? Like, and I tell them all the time, like, okay, they told you your baby's small. Yes. Thank you. Mom's doing a phone call. Thanks. I would tell them all the time that like, yes, let them sleep. So I could do my phone call. That distracting. Thank you. Yeah, so I'll have clients all the time who I'm like, well, where is like there's like a disconnect, right? So like I'll tell them like, well, have you sat down and actually just meditated with your baby and like tapped in and seen like, what does your baby feel? What is your baby telling you? Not what these women are telling you to go do. Like, first of all, you're stressed by what they're telling you. So that should tell you something is already like kind of not in alignment. And then where is the, like, you know, in the past, I feel like ancient times, or even not even that long ago, midwives they weren't using these tools and these things to tell us anything about ourselves. And I feel like they were using their intuition. And so they were probably even more accurate than like, you know, some of these midwives now. But I feel like they kind of tell you what I don't know, like they give you this diagnosis, like, or like your baby's measuring small and you need to go get an ultrasound, but they skip the whole part of like tapping into yourself and seeing what you really feel like, you know, making you feel like you have no, like, I remember how we were talking the other day and you were like, they make the mom feel like she's not enough. And that's exactly what it is. Like the mom is not enough. Like I'm not enough to tap in and speak to my own baby, or my baby is not like wise, intelligent enough just because they're in my body. They're not intelligent enough to communicate with me what they need me to do as their mother, you know, for them to come through in a healthy way. So I feel like that's one of the biggest things I want women to kind of just be aware of, like that there is like a part that's missing. And if you have, I guess a lot of midwives and practitioners are not holistic nowadays. So that's the reason why there's no connection between like telling you or encouraging you to use your intuition. And so, and that's the thing, women have these feelings and they're like not trusting it because they have these people like using these machines and all this new technology, but they don't trust themselves, you know? So I know like so for my midwife, pretty much my body just went smoothly. Like it just went smoothly, had the baby. So like there was nothing that came up that made her afraid or like worried about anything. Although she is like trained in she's like a midwife who's trained, I guess she went to like a nurse midwife. But like I said, nothing went like differently. Like, so she was pretty confident in that I knew what was going on with my body. But for my second baby, I was like, I don't need anything or anybody. I really like, it was so important for me to just feel like, let him communicate with me and tell me what he needed me to do. So in the beginning, when I got pregnant, I knew like, we're not going to any doctors at all. Like, I don't want anybody's energy in this whole sacred thing. So like if anything, like he's gonna communicate. I waited till we got one ultrasound. And even with that, I was like, it was important for me to feel him move on my own. Like I wanted to feel him. I didn't want the ultrasound to be like a confirmation of pregnancy, because I'm like, I already know I'm pregnant. So like when I feel him moving and when I'm strong that like, that's my baby moving, then we'll get the ultrasound. Because my husband, we wanted to know, we thought we were pregnant with twins because my mom and his mom made this comment of like twins. We were like, if we're pregnant with twins, like we want to know like right now. So he was like, let's just do it. Like, let's just do it. And actually before the lady came, I had actually changed my mind. I was like, I don't want to do it. But he was like, let's just do it. It's just one. And so I was like, okay, we're okay. We could do one. So the lady came to our house and did it. And even when she did it, I told her, she was like, what do you want to know? And I told her, like, I don't want you to tell me anything besides that you see one baby and, you know, we can listen to the heartbeat and let my baby, like, let Kamalu hear it. So we did that. And then that was it. And I just continued to like, you know, feel my body and make sure the baby was growing. You know, the baby's growing because you can feel it. So and I just felt like that much more empowered and that much more connected to my baby, not having any outside person telling me like shaking me off of what I already knew and believed. And it just was no interference with like his communication with me. And I just made sure to keep telling him, like, just let me know what you need me to do, you know, for you to come through healthy. Let me know what you need mama to do. Like, do you need to eat differently? And like, your body is always going to tell you, like, it's always going to let you know when something's off. So, yeah, I didn't have a bad experience with any midwives or OBs, but a lot of the clients that I've had have like, it just made me think like, wait a minute, what are we doing? Like, do we really know what we're doing when we hire these people who are midwives? And I think a lot of women think that because it's a midwife, they're automatically going to get like this natural birth experience. And a lot of times it's like, I'm saying that it's not that. And I think we're just putting too much into, we just kind of believe in them too much. And I don't think we should. So, and I remember talking with you, Sharma, and you telling me like your experience. And I thought that was so interesting, like that it even went like that. But yeah, like how'd it go for you?
My experience with medwives specifically, and why I call them medwives is because they are still operating in the medical system. And like you said, that sometimes you think with a midwife, it will be a natural birth, but it doesn't end up like that. Because they are, again, still operating from the medical system. Or the allopathic system. Yeah. So my experience with a midwife, I didn't see one until like maybe 6 months, because I didn't feel the need to go to a midwife. And then I was looking more into home birth at this time. And I was in Canada at that time. And they were saying how like you can get your child taken away from you if you didn't take it, you didn't go to care during your pregnancy. So I was like, okay, I'll just go, because that was like, I guess, my worst fear is like getting my kid taken away from me. So I was like, okay, I'll go. And so I did. And I told them, okay, if I'm not going to do a home birth, I'll at least like to do a water birth at a birthing center. So I went to specifically a Native Canadian midwifery, and I thought I would have more of a natural like practice care within my pregnancy going there, but I ended up getting a Wazungu, a white midwife at this Native Canadian midwifery place. And I was like, okay, this is weird, but okay. Hopefully I still get the same care that like they promoted in their website. Like they were talking about having a celebratory dance and with drums and whatnot after the birth, right? So I was like, okay, this is gonna be nice. And it was the complete opposite, because when I first went there, they're like, oh, well, this is pretty late in your pregnancy. I'm like, yeah. And then I refused most of their care, like what's that called? Like glucose. Had to get a drink. I was like, why don't I just have like a grape juice or an orange juice? They're like, no, you have to take this. And I'm like, glucose means sugar, and if you want to, test my sugar, you can with juice, with fruit juice. And they're like, no. And then they're like, can we do blood work? I'm like, no. Can we do an ultrasound? I'm like, no, it's okay. And they're like, so what do I do now? And I was just like, well, you can still hear my baby's heartbeat, like old midwives would. And I was really surprised they were asking me all of this, because I was expecting like Native Canadian.
Them to be midwives. Yeah.
Yeah. But they're like, okay, I want to use this machine on you, and I want to use this other machine on you. And I'm just like, what? Okay. You're not going to, because like there's no point, as in the glucose drink I mentioned, like you can literally just, it's a sugar drink, right? So fruits have plenty of sugar. You can give me that. I don't know what's in your glucose drink and whatnot. And they wanted to find out like my blood type and everything. I'm just like, you can find that in like early documents. You don't need to like draw my blood now. They're like, just in case like you have any, issues and whatnot, like HIV or something, like I'll need to use gloves if anything, like personal protective equipment. And I'm just like, yeah, like that's your job. Like if you feel the need to protect yourself, like that's what you'll need, then go ahead. And then they had to use the stethoscope, and they were so upset. Honestly, when I kept saying no, they're just like really mad and really upset. And it's just like, okay, so is there anything else you like need from me? They're like, well, we'll have to see you like every week. Now that like you're so far along. I'm like, okay. So I did, again, having the fact that I'm not gonna have my kid taken away from me. So I did that. And every single time, okay, so they found out that my baby dropped. They're like, perfect, you're just at that stage. They're like, your baby's growing fine. And then the next week, they'll pretty much ask me the same questions. Can I draw your blood? Can I do this? Can I do that? I'll have to say no a lot of the times. And then it got to the point where they started like pretty much bullying me, like making me feel bad. So they can do a blood test, they can do things, right? So from the next week, from, oh, your baby's growing fine and everything, to your baby's no longer growing, you now have an IUGR baby. And I got so upset, like I started crying, and I wasn't just thinking about myself, I was just thinking about other people, other women who go through this or would have to go through this, and they're a single parent. They don't have support, they don't have this, and they're being bullied into just making people feel useful, because I can tell every single time they didn't feel useful, using their equipment and stuff like that. So yeah. And then, my birth plan was to either home birth or a water birth at the birthing center. And then the closer we got, they're like, yeah, you'll have to end up going to a hospital and not a birthing center because your baby's too small. And I'm just like, what the heck? You're no longer my midwife. You're fired.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Wait, this is with Zoe?
Yeah, this is with Zoe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, oh yeah, when I was refusing their things, they were like, oh, we don't do cavemen things anymore, And I'm just like, are you implying that I'm a caveman? Because I'm saying no to using your equipment. And just knowing, because I was researching all these things, even though I was not applying it, because I'm just like, okay, this is to keep my baby, no one takes my baby, all of that. But I learned that using their products, they get paid to use these equipment on you. And they get paid for cesarean births and all of that. So that's what they're telling me with the IUGR baby. She's like, oh, we'll probably have to get the baby vacuum sucked out of you, maybe a cesarean. Like, they're planning my birth for me. Yeah. And I'm just like, what? This is not what we talked about. But I'm just listening. I'm like, mm-hmm. And like tears are just coming out of my face. I'm so mad. I'm like, girl, if you don't get out of my face right now. And I'm like, I should leave. So I just got upset and left. And then I got another midwife, and she, like, I told her all of that, and she was like, oh my gosh, why? And then she got my file for my next midwife, and she's like, oh, that's why, like, you have an IUGR baby, and you'll need this and you'll need that. Why did you say no to this care? And I'm just like, I thought you understood. I talked to you. Yeah.
I think it's so interesting, like, your ancestors wanted you to not go along with them, because like most women I know just get scared, like, okay, do what y'all need to do to get my baby here safely. And it's like, you knew, like, no. And it's so beautiful. Yeah. Like, it was like, he was right here in the camera, like, what, 2 years strong and healthy. But anyway, sorry, go ahead. I just think it's so mind-blowing how they do this to women. You could have had a whole C-section.
Yeah, exactly. I could have got my baby sucked out of my womb with a vacuum. I'm just like, okay. And I didn't want to like go back and forth with them, because I was thinking of an IUGR baby, and how my sister, she was, what is that called? a preemie baby, and she's bigger than me, taller than me, and everything, you know? So I'm just like, what about the human growth hormone though? You know, with IUGR babies, like, we all have this, and every cell has this. So why are you worrying me so much, you know, that I have an IUGR baby? And you don't even know because you're not using like your ultrasound and all of that. So you wouldn't know. You're literally just telling me things based off of what you think, and not based off of facts. So I was just really upset. So I got a third midwife, and it was the same thing all over again. That's when I realized that, wow, like you literally, it's just different people, but they're all operating the same way. Like I heard the same things. I heard like, ugh,
because
it was so
all
bad.
trained under the same system, like the same system, which the system is fear-based. So it's not going to be that much different. And then they're not trained to trust. Like I'm, you know, a nurse, a registered nurse too. Thank goodness my ancestors want me to know the truth too, because if I just go by what I was taught, oh, I would never be at a home birth. I would never have done a home birth probably, especially not an assisted one, because you're not taught to follow your own intuition and what you feel. So like, yeah, different people, but same system.
And the last one that I had, well, the second last one that I had, she was like her card was like spiritualist, LGBTQ, like spiritual midwife and all that, you know? So I was like, okay, you know, probably the same, but literally just a really pretty card with a rainbow on it. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And so I was telling her, no ultrasound, no all of this. And I'm just like, okay, you know, you guys see my record, stop asking me the same thing, you know, stop putting me in the same position where I have to decline you. Oh, sorry, hold on.
That's so who she's talking about was the IUGR baby. What do they call it? I don't even know the term sometimes. But apparently he was not growing. And usually with those babies, they'll say you need to be induced, and then induction will lead to another thing. But it's interesting, like not all babies are the same size. Not all babies are the same size inside. They don't all grow at the same rate. So it's no way to really know. And the only way you really know is like if the mom actually felt like something is going on with my baby. That's what I believe. But I feel like a lot of times we don't have that time. We don't get that like space to determine that for ourselves because they throw the diagnosis at us. And before we know it, we're in the hospital getting induced for a healthy baby. So, and not all midwives are, I wouldn't say like, I just think it's good to know, like to know what you really want. So know what you really want when you're going for these midwives. Like obviously, Sharma, you knew exactly what you wanted, what experience you wanted to birth your baby. And I knew that too for myself. So some midwives, they may be necessary. Like if you feel like you're not there mentally, spiritually yet to tap in and know what's going on with your body, and you may need this outside person for, you know, one or two of your birth experiences before you get to that different level. But Other times, like some women know exactly what they want, but they just kind of feel trapped, like, okay, these are my only options. I have to go along with this. And so that's kind of who we're talking to, like those people to know, like, no, you don't have to go with it. If you're already feeling pulled to like have this certain birth experience, it's a reason why you're feeling it. I think it's always a reason. I think a lot of times it's the universe or your ancestors, your spirit telling you like this baby, or your baby is telling you like, I want to come through this way. There's a reason why you're feeling that. And, you know, don't let the system knock you off of that and just kind of put that fear of like, oh, your baby can be taken. That was one of the things I was actually scared about with this one. Like, well, what if something happens and I have to take them to the hospital and they're questioning me about like why you never went to prenatal care? Like, I give myself the best prenatal care. Like, why didn't you ever go for that? Why doesn't the baby have this? Why that? And then I was like, you know what? Like, this has to be the way he wants to come. There's a reason why I've been to so many unassisted births and helped women who did the same thing. Like, it's a reason why I got to see and experience them do that. And like, you don't need to be afraid. Like, you're protected. You're protected. And the baby is saying, like, I don't want these people being involved with me, like, while you're carrying me. You can know what's going on with me because I'm going to let you know. Like, that's the bottom line. And the thing is that, yeah, a lot of the midwives, like I had one client who came right before, a few weeks before I birthed our baby. And he was like, I keep pointing at him because he's laying right here sleeping, but she had a situation where the midwives were like, they dropped her on the day of her due date. They were like, we can't come to your home birth anymore because she had gone to the hospital for like some test. She was seeing both and they were telling her that she needed to be induced. And she was like, I'm not staying for induction. Like, I'm going home. So she went home. And then the midwives who were supposed to be coming to her house were like, because the doctor recommended that, we can't come to your house. And I'm like, well, what are they for? Like, so they were like, well, they kind of work under the doctor. So like, once the doctor says something, they can't go against that. And it's like, well, so now this woman is abandoned. Like, she has no choice. Like, she has a choice. She can birth at home and just do her thing. But if you've been paying these people for a service, your whole pregnancy of this, like, 7-8 months, you've been planning to have these women, you've been connecting with them and planning to have them at your house to help you bring forth your baby. And then all of a sudden, just like that, they're like, we can't come. And she's like, okay, now I have no choice. I have to go to the hospital. And that was never part of your plan. Like, that just made me so, I mean, I know like everybody, like sometimes I get so wrapped up, like, it's my baby. And I have to remind myself, like, Brittany, it's not your baby. It's not your birth experience. But I think I just feel so deeply sometimes for like some of these women, because it's like, that didn't have to happen. Like, it literally did not have to happen. And it was just like all because of this one little comment or something that the midwife made to you that made you feel like you weren't enough to do what you were made to do. Literally, your body was made in a way to carry your baby, open up, let your baby out. And so, I don't know, I just get so like, oh, like, why are y'all doing this? But yeah, but you come back down now.
Yes.
You can finish.